call to order this special meeting of the Round Lake Board of Education in the library of the high school on September 11, 2023 at 7:04 p.m. If I can get started first with a roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Here.
Miss Lee?
Here.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
Mr. De Vera?
Here.
Thank you. And this special meeting is the public hearing of our interfund transfer. And for that, I will turn it over to Dr. Gibbons.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education. This evening's public hearing is relation directly to an interfund permanent transfer between our funds here in the district. This relates to Board of Education Policy 420 regarding fund balances. As we know, our district was very fortunate to be awarded $6.4 million for the Early Childhood Construction Grant. One of the conditions of that grant is that we would expend the funds in advance. In addition to the expending of the funds for the grant, we are very appreciative of a private donor who also requires that once the project is completed, we will be reimbursed. In addition to that component, there is also a district commitment to the funding that project. So in order for us to be in compliance with Illinois School Code as well as government accounting standards, we must move those dollars to the appropriate funds as we are looking forward to starting those projects. According to Illinois School Code as well as the governmental accounting standards, we cannot directly transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 60. Fund 10 is our education fund. Fund 60 is our capital projects fund. We must, in two separate transactions, move $4 million from Fund 10 Education to Operations and Maintenance as one transaction, which is Fund 20. The second transaction we're going to be asking the Board of Education to approve is to then move those same funds of the $4 million from Operations and Maintenance, Fund 20, to Fund 60, where it will remain until those expenditures come through. According to Illinois School Code as well as GASB accounting standards, we must hold a public hearing. The Board of Education did approve that Monday, September 11th at 6:55 p.m. we would conduct this hearing, which is why we are here at this time. In addition, we are required that we must post in a local circulation newspaper that we are conducting this hearing. That was posted on August 26th in the Lake County News Sun. That concludes my presentation for the interfund transfer.
Any questions from the board?
No questions, but I just wanted to remind the board, this has been on conversations in the last finance committee meetings. This is in relation to the project at the EEC, the Early Childhood Grant.
All right, and as always, members of the public may participate in public comment during all meetings of the regular board and special board meetings by attending in person or by submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes on the day of the meeting. Public commenter will be contacted to confirm identity. Once confirmed, the electronic public comment will be provided to all board members in written form. A link to the electronic public comment form is online. Not seeing any public comment here and knowing that we did not get any electronic public comment, I will now adjourn this special meeting at 7:08 p.m. Good evening. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Round Lake Area School District Board of Education on September 11th, 2023 at 7:09 p.m. If I can get started first with a roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Here.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
Mr. Jewett?
Here.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Miss Lee?
Here.
Mrs. Klingler?
All right, and first up, let us have the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up would be getting an approval of the meeting agenda. If I can get a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Miss Lee. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries. We have an approved agenda, and first up on that is communications to the board, and our first one is our IASB Fall Dinner Meeting on October 11th. Just as a reminder for the board, we're all scheduled and anticipate going to that one. Of course, if you have a conflict, please let us know ahead, but make sure you get it out on your calendars. It's going to be a good event. Any questions on the Fall Dinner Meeting?
And that just a reminder that's in North Chicago and it's their new facility. I thought their middle school, it's beautiful. I think you'll really enjoy it, seeing it. Neil Math and Science Academy.
Yeah, Dora is their board member who's also on Lake Division. They're extremely excited to show that off because it's an amazing facility. Amazing.
I was there when they did the launch, when they said this is what's going to happen, that was really cool.
All right. Hearing nothing else on Fall Dinner Meeting, we will now go to our CEDAW Governing Board recap, and that is Mr. Jewett.
All right, so the governing board meeting was on the 23rd, and there were a handful of topics covered. It was the usual awards, which always clear the room, and then, which is the same as here, it felt like I was at home. And then went over a couple things. One is to share some of the results of the extended school year, which were about 350 students attended that, which was that was neat to see. And then staffing, I don't remember what the comparison was to last year, but they have 10 teachers and 22 paraprofessional openings, vacancies, which is about half of what it was last year. So, and then it was a summary of the ELS, which is the Exceptional Learning Solutions Program Review. It's a consulting company that comes in and did interviews and really, in a way, have really focused, almost like a climate survey of staff, parents, other districts, really to get a feedback on how they feel like the district is doing. And ended up providing, it did the overview on the report, and then we did an overview on the budget, and so it was a lot to cover. So if you want a copy of that report, it's on their website, or I can email it to you. There's 12 different categories. It's pretty hefty, but and it has recommendations from ELS and next steps. There are a couple things to pull away from that. One is that it was pretty thorough, and it seemed pretty transparent, and Dr. Doonan seemed she seemed very transparent and shared that there's been a lot of struggles, and she feels like in the last few years, and it just really seems like she's starting to get her sea legs under her and really kind of get a bearing. And even though this was hard to hear, it was good for her to hear it. And right now, The teams, what they're doing, the action steps out of that are they have 12 different teams that are going to be put together to address the standards for exceptional service. And those are basically action teams for each one of the areas. And some of the areas are like the safety and security, human resources, curriculum and instruction, so on and so forth. And then the budget was approved, which is also approved by the governing board. It was increase. There was an increase by 5% and also 5% for operations and maintenance. And the budget is designed to be in a deficit this year, and they're going to use some of the fund balance that they have in order to set up a lot of the initiatives that came through, both in terms of what they already know they need to do and some of the feedback from ELS. That's it. Any questions?
Did you say it would be at a deficit? So what are they doing moving forward? I mean, I know you said they're gonna kind of move some things for this year, but what are they looking at currently so that as they plan for next year, that they're not at a deficit?
They actually have a planned deficit this year, and they're gonna pull the funds out of, this year's budget is designed to be in deficit, to use some of the fund balance. And the reason why they went in deficit was to use some of the fund balance.
So I'm on yours is the governing board, right? So I'm on the executive board. I think capital improvements. So I think they purchased a facility this year, and then they have other construction related projects somewhat similar to what we've done in the past, is using fund balance to pay down using some of the balance to get some one-time projects done.
Okay, that makes more sense. I'm thinking you're just operating at a deficit, like, have they shared what those capital improvement projects are, or what the
Yes.
purchase has been?
Yes, they bought a school, I believe, I can't remember, they bought a facility, and then they presented their entire capital plan. They're doing things with technology. And I mean, I'm on that board, and Val understands that you're not really going to operate that way over an extended period of time because it's not viable for the
So
cooperative.
that's why I asked, like, the question, because you
Yep.
can't operate like that.
But just one other note, it's the facility that they purchased was a facility they were leasing for many years, and it came up for sale, and it made sense to them at that time. They knew they would always need the facility, so they chose to purchase it at this time.
What facility is that?
I'll get it to you and I'll send it to you. It's right
All right,
there.
lots of questions
No,
today.
it's right there. I'll get it to you and we'll send it to you in the weekly. That sounds right.
Thank you.
Thank you for the support.
Go team. All right, hearing no additional questions, thank you for that. Next up is just a quick review of the FOIA report. Any questions from the board in regards to what was attached? Hearing none, we'll move now on to review contracts under 1,000. Again, any questions in regards to the posted one contract? Hearing none there. I could say this all over again. And now, members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person or by submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Electronic public comments will be accepted up until noon on the day of the regularly scheduled meeting. Public commenter would be contacted to confirm identity, and once confirmed, the electronic public comment will be provided to all board members in written form. A link to the electronic public comment form is online. We did not have any electronic public comment, and it does not appear that we have any public comment. So hearing none, we will now move on. And next up is our superintendent's report, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Board President Francisco and Board. The following donations have been made to the district and schools. In accordance with board policy, we are informing the board of these donations at this time. Thank you letters will be prepared for each donor. Backpacks with supplies from Avon Township, backpacks and supplies H&R Block of Round Lake, $500, 60 printed velvet throws, 72 journals, 54 boxed greeting card set for beach from Enchanted Backpack, 89 backpacks new, the All-American Exterior Solutions. For the board's convenience, we have listed upcoming homecoming events, very, very busy time of year. Certainly happy to answer any questions, but those run from September 23rd through Saturday, September 30th. We've also put additional information for your convenience. Tuesday, September 12th, the Indian Hill Open House, that's tomorrow. And then this coming weekend, there's a student opportunity steam table at Lakefront Park. One that's new, which I'm just going to speak about. This morning, we found out that the John and Kathleen Schreiber Foundation cut a check to the district for $20,000. You may remember last year we received a grant to engage our kids in what we call cultural institution field trips in the city. And they were very, very popular. It was a grant we received. The first 2 trips had all the tickets reserved within 20 minutes of open registration. And so we ended up having to do a lottery, so we couldn't send everybody. So what we ended up doing is, well, the Schreiber Foundation, Molly Cullum, who's a Schreiber, reached out to us and said, we want to support you. What do you have? And so the teaching and learning team, specifically our Director of Teaching and Learning, Jess Crone, put a proposal together that significantly expands the opportunity. We're now going to have 8 trips. The Art Institute, Field Museum, Museum of Science and Industry, and the Shedd Aquarium. And we've got $15,000 in which to work. They also gave us an additional 5 that are unrestricted. So just kind of a celebration. Super, super supportive. We'll obviously send a thank you letter. I've already emailed her, so I just wanted to update the board on that one. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. Any questions for Dr. Mendoza? All right, hearing none, we will move now on to committee reports. And first up and next up is our Community Engagement Committee. Mrs. Klingler.
Hello. So if you got a chance to look at the packet, the first thing that was on the agenda was the annual committee meeting agenda calendar draft. We decided to change the cadence of our meetings to once a month, and then this is just a draft kind of reviewing over some of the things that we're going to be discussing at the meeting, so we kind of have like a warning in advance. So if you guys have any questions or anything that you want addressed, you can kind of see if it's on there already. The next thing is the Parents Needs Assessment Survey results. This was really, really a nice presentation, in that it gave us a lot of information from the parents on how they receive their information and kind of the best ways to reach out to them. So we got a lot of information on that. If you guys get a chance to look at that report, there's quite a bit of information in it. It was a good way to do it, I think, because it was sort of short and sweet. It was conducted, I believe, in May of this past year, or this year. So sort of the end of the school year, kind of nail down parents on sort of how they want to be reached out to and what opportunities we have in that area. So we've got some pretty good information on that, and sort of developing a plan on attack on how we're going to outreach the parents in ways that feel comfortable to them. The next one was the website template proposed timeline. Excuse me. If you look, I'm sorry, my computer is freezing. I apologize. Sorry, I apologize. So the website that they pulled up, there were 2 options that they gave us. I think we kind of unanimously agreed on one specific one, but the decision has to be made tomorrow. So they'll bring that back to the whole board, I believe. And then the last one is the partner school planning timeline, and that one has actually a treasure trove of information on it. There are a couple links in there that were shared with the board that are basic. There's just so much information on it that they're actually going to present to the board, I believe, in the October meetings fully, just because there's so much information that's gone over in that, the planning timeline and so forth. And then the last one is the monthly information snapshot. That one is basically a one pager of things that are upcoming, kind of just if you look at it like internal, external communications, partnerships, and then resources, and then sort of upcoming events. And social media analytics, we kind of discussed maybe adding the next 2 months coming up, but if you get a chance to look at it, it's really a nice snapshot and it's really easy to read. So that's kind of what we've been over. There is a lot of information in that packet, so if you have, if you want to crack that open and take a peek at it, I really suggest it. But any questions? Anybody want to add anything?
The website decision, that's not being brought. Correct.
No, we were looking for feedback today based on 2 template recommendations, and we have that in the Westboro, and we'll confirm that with final site tomorrow, move forward with that movement.
My apologies if I misspoke. I meant to say that they were going to bring the website back, but once the decision is made, for clarification.
I think the decision is made.
Yeah.
So the,
Meaning you'll show us which one you picked, right? Okay.
So as we get closer, we'll have access to the back end of the website starting in mid-October, I think it is. So we'll start making the conversion of our pages to the new site. We intend to launch in early January. So as we get closer to that launch date, we'll be able to show the board what it looks like.
So down the road at a later date. But yeah, January is the live. It's hopefully going to go live in January 2024.
Any additional questions?
I think the partner school, maybe that's what that was crossed, that's coming to the full board in October. Yeah.
Thank you for the clarifications and the update. And next up, we will move to approval of open meeting minutes.
I need a motion to approve the August 21st, 2023 regular board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the September 5th, 2023 special meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Ms. Klingler. Roll call, please.
I'm sorry, that's the 5 p.m. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Abstain.
Miss Lee?
Abstain.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the September 5th, 2023 special meeting minutes for 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Tavera.
I've got a question. There was a 6 o'clock one, right? There were 3 that day.
That one is coming on the 18 because I'm missing a portion because of what was in closed session. So I'm missing a portion. So that's why it didn't come to this one.
Thank you for that clarification. And roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Abstain.
Miss Lee?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
For the consent agenda, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda for the accounts payable report for $2,788,075.08. The September 11th, 2023 employment report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Lee. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, new business. I need a motion to approve the continued partnership with the Illinois Resource Center for the 2023-2024 school year at the cost of $42,505. That comes out of Title III.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Tavera.
Yes, thank you. This was on the last Finance Committee agenda. Again, this is for our English learners. This is, again, a partnership with the Illinois Resource Center. This is funded out of Title III grants.
Hearing no additional questions, roll call please.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the 4-year lease agreement at 0.9% with Apple Financial Services and the dollar amount of $872,694 coming out of Fund 10.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. I'll start the questioning, and I know finance will chime in too. This clarify for us, this is not at all including wireless or T-Mobile or anything like that. This is going back to what we've traditionally quote unquote had.
That's exactly correct. So I want to provide a little bit of background from the last Finance Committee meeting where there were two options. One is buy everything through Apple like we've done in the past, Wi-Fi only. The second option at that time was to buy most things through Apple except for the freshman class, which was going to be a cell-enabled device through T-Mobile. So the reason this is before you tonight is because in ongoing conversations with both our Apple rep, Patrick, and our T-Mobile rep, Chad, Patrick alerted me to the fact that there will be an Apple announcement tomorrow, September 12th. Apple keeps things close to the vest, so he couldn't tell me what's going to be in that announcement. Very few people know at Apple until it's announced tomorrow, but it could be a new iPad version, which if that happens, the 9th generation stock will likely be depleted very quickly. And we want to be in a good position if that happens. So that's why Dr. Kivens has worked with Apple and other financial entities to package up a lease agreement she's comfortable with. We're presenting that to you today because we do not want to run out of time. What I've been trying to do, working with T-Mobile, is to position us in the right place if all the stars align. This announcement may change our direction and we want to be protected and go with the lowest cost option. That's what this is before you tonight. And Dr. Gibbons can speak to the lease arrangement. But real quick, I'll give you an update of where we are overall with the T-Mobile efforts. So per your direction, I went back to our T-Mobile rep Chad and said, we're interested in this opportunity to do something innovative and provide our freshman class with these devices if the cost of that option was cost neutral compared to the full out Apple purchase. If you remember, it was about $100,000 more. Chad, being Chad, he's very aggressive, very assertive. He's turned over every stone in the last several weeks. I haven't seen anybody that tenacious, and he's literally, and the team knows this, he's looked at every opportunity to find funding where he could. He's secured a private donation. He's found additional savings. We looked at quantities of devices. We've sharpened our pencil on the quantity of devices needed for the cell-enabled option. As we stand here today, I talked to him like an hour ago, he's found about half the money. So we're about half short. But that's where we are right now. In the event that Apple does not announce tomorrow that there's a new iPad option, it may provide us additional time where we can come back to you within a week, the next meeting, a week from now, and may be able to close that gap. But that's where we are tonight, and he's been great at looking at everything possible.
Thank you. So just to confirm, because again, at that last finance meeting, with doing the freshman class with a cell enabled. So that is possibly still on the table. Is that how I understood what you just said?
It is still on the table, and in fact, he's still looking at opportunities to find the gap. Approving this tonight puts us in position to execute this agreement tomorrow after the announcement, so that we can be assured that we'll have devices if the announcement happens. If it doesn't happen, we buy ourselves about a week to be able to see if there's an opportunity to do the T-Mobile thing, and we would bring that back a week from today.
So this is agreement if the freshman class doesn't work out. Does it cover that freshman class in this agreement?
Yeah, the lease quantities. So my team went back and looked at exactly, we do this every year, how many devices we'll need to support first, fifth, and ninth grade students, plus spares, plus staff. The total number of devices in this agreement is 1,860. That's what we're purchasing. We would buy that typically in January, February. We're doing it earlier because of the ninth generation cost-effective model. But that's the number. If we went with the freshman class, we would take that out and that would be purchased through T-Mobile. Then we'd be buying 1,250 from Apple.
So if we decrease the quantity in this lease agreement, does it change these numbers before us?
Numbers in terms of interest rate?
Yeah, will it change the interest rate, the payment cadence, or will it change? Other than the quantity, will there be any change?
So it will not change the interest rate. However, because we're purchasing less, it will affect what our payment would be because we're paying the per item piece that is there. But we have a secured 0.9 for 4 years based on what we purchase. There is no minimum on that. It's the 4-year mark that makes the interest rate be 0.9.
Okay, so and no minimum, so again, decreasing that's not, with no minimum, obviously, then we can, even if we cut that in half, there's no penalty. We're going to, I'm just saying.
That is correct. There is no penalty, no minimum.
Okay,
I'll just say, should that change, we would obviously take that in consideration if we were to bring back the T-Mobile option next week.
okay. So really, we're using this as a placeholder.
A placeholder with the ability to execute tomorrow should they announce the end of life of the ninth generation. Exactly. It's an insurance policy because we know you've communicated you want the savings from the 10th generation and they're significant savings.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Hearing none, roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the personal decrease of 1.0 Secretary 2 in the amount of $84,642.62. And the personal increase of 1.0 Grants Specialist in the budgeted amount of $94,736.37 to support the accounting, purchasing, and inventory processes associated with the teaching and learning grants.
So
Coming out
moved.
of local
Yep.
district funds, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Ms. Klingler. Finance?
Oh, sorry, thank you. I took water. This was at the last finance meeting. Again, just reminding administration that we just did budget assumptions. This is a decrease and increase, really with a net increase of $10,093.75. Again, as we have the project with the EEC and those funds, we need someone, there's certain reporting that has to be completed.
Any additional questions? Roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee? Yes.
Motion carries.
Right, I need a motion to approve the renaming of Calvary to Educational Support Center.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Mr. Jewett. I'm going to start with the question. I get the educational support center part, and I know that we're in reading it. I see we're signing it to make sure of the fact that we still have the memorial garden behind it. But again, and maybe it's just me, but Calvary has been a traditional location in the community for multiple generations. I still think somehow, some way, we needed to build that in. So I'd like to ask for a little bit of a background as to why we just dropped it off.
Do you want to start?
Well, we were talking about that actually, and there was some concern that there would be confusion if the name is kept. So they had suggested this, and Annette and I were part of the meeting, and we thought it identified the purpose of the building, but while keeping the continuity of it.
So, yeah, there was the meeting that the board president had nominated those to and attend. So it was Jennifer and I did play devil's advocate asking, why are we not keeping Calvary somewhere in the name? The majority felt that, removing Calvary. However, I did specify we need, because again, as you mentioned, well, it is a church. There is significant meaning to the community because we have the memorial garden that the district, when we purchased the property, is to keep intact and open for the community to visit. So that's where the signage came in, because we need, as it transitions to, or it is not transitioned, it has transitioned to district property, that memorial garden is still there. We need to keep that access, and we need to let the community know that it is still there for them. Because even if we, at some point in the future, and I know it's way in the future, we were to bulldoze that building and rebuild it, that community garden has to remain.
Yeah, and just going back to that, again, the historical of it, it's the location, it's been Calvary, it's that, and the community, it's a staple for the community. I'm at a loss to just go at Calvary, but I definitely understand the recommendation. It's just, that's my 2 cents, so. Any additional questions? Yeah, but at the same point, if you still see it, the number of YouTube channels that complain about it because it is and the historical significance of it, and that's what we're now. If Willis wants to come and pay us $10 million to name it whatever they want, then I'm good with that. But this isn't a naming rights situation, humbly.
So at the end of the meeting, that was the name to be brought forward to the board. But again, I think at the very least, the signage is important because it is still there for the community.
All right, hearing no additional questions, roll call please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
No.
Miss Lee?
No.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. I need a motion to approve the BOE travel expenses reimbursed related to COSBA Urban Board Alliance Symposium 2023 in the amount of $538.51.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Miss Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the Board of Education 2023 COSBA National Conference travel and related expenses estimated at $8,771.50.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Ms. Lee. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the request to partner with Equity Literacy Institute in the amount of $32,000 coming out of Title II.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mr. Jewett.
Again, this came out of finance, the last meeting. Again, this is a partnership for equity-based topics. It's a continuation of equity-based training for our administration. And again, it is funded out of Title II.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Need a motion to approve the permanent interfund transfer of $4 million from Fund 10 Education to Fund 20 Operations and Maintenance.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Klingler, seconded by Ms. Lee.
Again, as you heard Dr. Kivens, and as it's been on the board finance agenda, this is all in relation to the construction that will soon start for the Early Education Center. Again, there are monies that have to be allocated to certain funds as we go to pay vendors and contractors. And again, a full transparency on where those monies come from and how they're distributed.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the permanent interfund transfer of $4 million from Fund 20 Operations and Maintenance to Fund 60 Capital Projects.
So second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Tavera. Same.
And I was gonna say, just to reiterate, it's saying this is the second half of that transfer.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Yes.
Mr. Tavera?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, that brings us to positive occurrences.
So can I start with one that I meant to mention last week? I don't think Corey's here though, is he? Is Corey here? We did the ALICE training. I meant to mention that last board meeting. We did it at the start of the school year. I don't know if the whole board attended the in-person ALICE training at the Civic Center, and then we got to, unfortunate, emulate those scenarios in the buildings with our teachers and administration. Very insightful. It's not a scenario anybody wants to live out, but I think the training, I think we've heard good positive feedback from the ALICE training. So just to thank the administration for putting that together.
Yeah, it's definitely an eye opener. If you haven't had the ability to go through it, it's one that you wish you didn't have to have your eyes open to, but you definitely want to have the experience.
I've attended some of the open houses. It's that season again. Well attended. They're definitely very structured this year. Just very nice to be out in the schools.
Okay, I'm delighted to report that we had a competition this weekend for the marching band. We did win third place, and we got best auxiliary, which is the color guard portion of that, and best drumline. So that was delightful. Once again, I have to highlight how much people compliment the Round Lake students for just being lovely, well-behaved children, and they just represent our community so nicely. And then I was actually, I attended an event recently and I just was hearing really good feedback about Round Lake schools in general. And I just wanted to highlight that because it was kind of a high point for my week, so.
Can I hate to do it, but can I make a correction? It's not drumline, drum major. Though the drumline did score higher than they have in the past, but I just want to make that correction because it was best drum major.
You are correct. I'm sorry. I misspoke that. Yeah.
I'll chime in. I know that Miss Lee and I had the opportunity to go downtown to Chicago and do the Urban Board Alliance. There was a ton of great information with that. Equity, diversity, just the challenges that we see on a day-to-day basis in the larger districts as we're a part of. We'll be reporting back on that within the next couple meetings, and we'll put together a recap so that we can talk about it. But it falls right in line with the same stuff that we get at NSBA, at the COSBA meetings, at III. But this one was actually, at least to me personally, and Ms. Lee can chime in, the focus on it from the larger urban school district was refreshing to see that, hey, we're not out here by ourselves. That we're seeing the same things that all the other districts are too.
May I ask the board?
No, I was just gonna second that it was a lot of great information.
How was the technology center visit?
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. Yeah. Scott.
Yeah, I thought it was very impressive. I thought my self-control and not pushing all the buttons was very good. I really
Until the
wanted to.
very end.
They invited. They said whoever wants it. I elbowed DeVera out of the way. And
That was
jumped
me,
in.
just so
Oh,
you
was he?
know.
I'm sorry. Somebody got the elbow because I was going to go and push.
They invited me and I hesitated and you're like, nope, too much of a hesitation.
Snooze, you lose. Exactly. There's some buttons to be pushed. And but the whole idea, our students are really fortunate for the opportunities that are there. It was really impressive, opportunity for dual credit. Not just dual credit, but actually to be able to complete and then have certifications, real marketable certifications in hand upon graduation is really impressive.
And I believe the one center is also from a generous donation from the same family.
It sounds right.
Yes, so they're obviously generous benefactors to the community, so they are greatly appreciated. I just had a couple more that I wanted to mention. We know we had to pivot for that first game we had from North Chicago. I thought to see all the administration to help out and be there is,
Waukegan,
yes, what'd I say?
North Chicago.
That's coming for homecoming, but Waukegan, the game, so it's nice to have all the pivot was quick, but I think we did a really good job. And then this Thursday is the homecoming, or a football game, it's not Friday, so the game this week is Thursday. Just a gentle reminder.
As everybody reaches their calendar, yes, it is Thursday, and it's on their calendar.
That's why I
for
mentioned it. It's
Thursday.
not really a positive occurrence. It's a future positive occurrence.
All right, hearing nothing else on the positive occurrences, future agenda items, I'll just throw it out there. I kind of already touched base on it on the positive occurrences. If we can put on for not next week's in September, but one of the October meetings for us to report on the Urban Board Alliance, was whichever one you want to get that to. The two of us will send Ms. Garcia some updates and our packages for that so that we can talk about that in the October meeting. Because I know for me, future agenda, I will not be future agendaing for next week. Unfortunately, I will be in DC. I will hope to be able to attend virtually, so we'll try and do it that way. And I think that you're also going to be virtual next week.
I will be. I will have to go to my office, which is in Seattle, so that's a plane ride. So I can't commute back quite as quick.
So we're gonna have both of the waters touch. You'll be on the Seattle side, I'll be in DC, we're good.
I have a future agenda item is, Mr. Jewett was talking about CEDAW, and we've kind of visited all the centers with the tech campus. It'd be nice to kind of dive into now the CEDAW facilities.
They have multiples, so do you want to do it like by campus, or how do you want to?
Well,
Because you have like
I mean,
Right.
so maybe we can start off with Dr. Apgar reporting out on the facilities and what they do, and we can,
Okay.
because I think maybe to broaden our knowledge in regards to CEDAW and the facilities, and, we can start moving forward that way.
And I'll throw in a suggestion off of that too, if Dr. Apgar can. Where do we see most of our students going so that we can see where our students are at? If we
Yeah, I
don't
was kinda
have somebody
hoping-
in the building, then that's gonna be a little bit lower on the list.
I'm hoping that would come in the report out of CEDAW and their facilities, and then where do we see our students?
This
We
is
can
why
get
we
that
pay
to you
the big bucks.
easily.
This is why we pay you the big bucks.
Yes.
So we'll get you a list of the buildings, what programming is there, and then how many of our kids are in each one, and then we can reconvene with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, hearing nothing else on future agenda items. Then I will take a motion to convene in closed session as permitted by statute 5 ILCS 120/2 for the purpose of discussing the following: employment matters 5 ILCS 120/2C1, litigation 5 ILCS 120/2C11, and closed meeting minutes 5 ILCS 120/2C21.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Roll call, please.
Miss Lee,
Yes.
Mrs. Klingler,
Yes.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco.
Yes. Motion carries. That will put us in closed session, which brings us to the end of our public session for this evening. We thank you very much for attending online, and we will have our next regularly scheduled meeting next week on the 18th at 7 p.m. Everyone have a great evening.